And hello there, Tania.
Hello.
And I forgot to say, is it Tania or Tania?
Good question. Tania.
Tania. Well, I'm glad I checked then. I should have checked before I said Tania.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm used to it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you are, yeah. Well, it's lovely to see you, Tania. And I know we've been in communication for a little while, and you kindly offered to talk about your recovery from neck and shoulder pain mainly, wasn't it? So we'll talk about that. We'll give people a chance to join us. As I said, sometimes in the summer people like to be outdoors, but
although it's a weird day today, kind of sun, rain. My top's come off, my top's gone back on.
And whereabouts are you in the UK?
So I live in East Sussex, near a place called like Wadhurst, Tunbridge Wells, that sort of area. We've been here, gosh, a long time now, maybe since I was about 20.
Right. Oh, it is a long time. Yeah. So I'm up in the north. You're further south. Those people, actually, my geography is not great anyway, even if England. But I know the Yorkshire is further north.
At least we're not Europe, where it's sort of 40 to 48 degrees.
Absolutely, yeah, and in some places in America apparently as well, which is pretty horrendous.
Nightmare.
Anyway, I just want to say hello to the people who are joining us. Nice to see you. Please do post a comment in. Let's see who's here. And then as we get moving and chatting together, you can ask any questions or insights or anything like that. And for those of you who are watching the recording, thank you for watching. And I hope you benefit as well. And by all means, put something in the comments, and somebody hopefully will go and have a look at them another time and respond to anything there. So to begin with then, Tania, so I know you had pain for quite a long time, so about 9 years before you came across this work. So looking back now, what was going on? Are you aware of what actually caused the, I know you are aware of what caused the pain to begin.
I think so. I mean, going back a little bit further, and I definitely am going to answer that. I've done a lot of the work, and obviously I think it's lifelong, this work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I realise that I've had, you know, TMS or this mind body pain syndrome since I was a little girl. But of course, I didn't know that. But you know, I would often feel sick or have tummy ache or you know, have an upset tummy if I was nervous, and my mum's very similar,
right?
Which is interesting. Obviously,
yes,
there's been
some started the stomach problems as well.
Yeah. So just like I was like a nervous, anxious child, you know, with a very tricky upbringing. You know, and didn't go away, like, you know, so your families don't go away necessarily. So that's sort of been ongoing into my adult life. So I have had quite a lot of trauma. I've had quite a lot of loss. I lost my best friend when I was pregnant with my first child. I was only 25, and then we lost another dear friend.
Wow.
And I've now lost my brother and my dad. So I think, and I mention that because the loss is what triggered the big old neck and shoulder pain, which was the death of my brother, who must have been 52 at the time, and he died of cancer. But of course, it was a lot more complicated than that. Yes. So
what's happening at that point, is it? It's not just the stress at that point. It just brings up a lot of other stuff as well.
100%. We had to give you a little bit of background. You know, I'm a very open book, so ask me whatever you want. There's, you know, I'm not sort of hiding anything. He was called Giles, and we had a very complex relationship. In fact, we hadn't spoken for 3 years before we became ill, just to show you the complexity, and maybe other people might relate to some of this. So I was pretty angry with him. He drank a lot and had issues with his children, which really triggered me, and it all got too much. And I had to, for my own benefit, separate myself from him. which I was at peace with, if I'm really honest. I was at peace with that. I didn't do that easily. I would say that, you know, I'm classic syndrome person, is that I was a perfectionist and I would always try to do my very best since day dot. So I'm just pointing that out as like that's often the case with this kind of personality that leads on to going into your body. And I'm a real fixer and a looker after. You know, I then became a life coach, and this has been my kind of journey. So this has been quite a big journey to try and get boundaries in place. Now I'm on my recovery. But he became ill. He contacted me, and I immediately went to him, and I looked after him with my mum for 9 months.
Wow.
But during that 9 months I didn't have much pain, and I had a lot of different things, a lot of back pain, and the nervous tummy never ended, and that's still a work in progress. But I do remember thinking when he was ill, gosh, you know, my body's holding up really well, like I'm being so strong. And it was so triggering that he had an illness, because I'd lost these people before. And so when I was in this journey, it was really like a living hell. Not only to watch him deteriorate and what cancer does to a person, and have to look after him, but also I had to repair our relationship. Yes. And my mum, who has been single for probably 30 years, and I'd hope she won't watch this, but she doesn't know about technology, but she sort of took it out on me, really. And my mum and I are very close. So so I felt like I was suffering two losses at the same time. Yeah. Because mum was pushing back at me, because what is she going to do? She's losing the child. Absolutely. And you reach out to people that you care for. You obviously often react to those people that you're close to, don't you? Because they're people react to someone. Yeah. So she was very angry, not with me, I don't think, although it came at me. She couldn't be angry with Giles. No, quite. And so my marriage wasn't great at that time, and I just was, for 9 months, I was, looking back, I didn't know this at the time, in fight or flight constantly. Just trying to cope. I felt constantly sick and shaky. I remember waking up one morning thinking, gosh, I wonder when there'll be a day when I don't feel nauseous. Like, will I ever feel normal again? You know, like it was that feeling of being so terrified. I think fear for me is the prevalent emotion generally. Right. What brought it all on. So I went through that journey, and he sadly died. It was very traumatic at the end. And then I suppose it must have been about, gosh, I mean, it's hard for me to remember. I would say maybe 1 or 2 months later. Right. I just had this sort of pain in my neck, and obviously I was still in shock. And then I think my whole back went into full spasm, like all the way down my shoulder into my back. And I just remember thinking, what is this pain? This is so painful. Like, what the hell is happening? Thinking it was a complete one-off, that I must have done something. I mean, I know you relate to this. Yes, absolutely. What have I done? Yeah, what have I done? Did I lift the shopping? Did I? Yeah. And then it just began this hideous pattern. It would be, I couldn't see a pattern. I wasn't even looking for a pattern. I was just in it. And it would be if I was under pressure, or if I had to perform in some way, like everyone to my house, or look after everyone. I've got 3, John and I, John's my husband, we've been married 35 years. We've got 3 grown-up children. And even if they were all coming home and I was stepping into being the perfectionist, being the perfect mum, being the perfect getting everything right. I mean, I so want to get this across to people, because hopefully I'm going to really inspire people with how I've managed to change. And listen, I'm still working on it. But
we're all still, like you said, it's a lifelong journey. But it sounds like you were constantly putting other people first all the time and not looking after yourself. You said you couldn't see a pattern. Could you, were you aware even then that it was when you were stressed, or is it just looking back? Yeah,
no,
so just looking back.
I wasn't aware.
If we're not aware of it, we're blinkered to it, aren't we?
Blinkered.
Just thinking I've just
done something again, or I've overdone it, or I'm very tired, or I'm like I kind of knew it was when I was stressed, but I couldn't believe that stress was making my body go into this full lockdown.
Yes.
And even now, I was saying to Georgie earlier, to you, oh, I've got this pain in my neck, and I'm thinking, yes, I did something, and then I'm like, no, I didn't do anything. I know what's going on here. But you immediately want to find the medical thing. Like, okay, this time I've done something, it can't be.
Actually, that will change and ease off. But yes, of course, because that's how we've been brought up. That's what we've always thought. There's something physical. There must be something wrong in the area where we're feeling the pain. But the main difference now is I assume you don't go into any fear. You just, missed the signs for that one. Right, then let's work on this.
There's a small amount of fear. I can't lie. There is still 20%, 10% where I'm like, well, the fear is really that it's painful and you don't want it. So you'll be like, oh, how long is it going to last? Is it, who have I got coming? Do I need to be better than this to survive what I'm about?
20% is so much better than, and it's not like you've been doing this for years. So
I would say I've been doing this for 14 months.
Right. Okay.
And it's miraculous. So so then I carried on like that for 9 years. I went to see every person under the sun, acupuncturists, cranial osteopaths. I mean, my eldest son once looked at me and said, oh, it's all from here. And then, of course, I completely judged myself, thinking, I'm a lesser person because I'm, my child's seeing me as being sort of neurotic. But I had therapy. I'm a life coach. I'd done all the work with that and been a life coach for a long time. So I thought I knew myself really well. I was like, I know myself well. I've done all the work. I don't, what's going on? There's nothing hidden. I've said it all. I've done it all. And then I'm presuming you just want me to keep going with the story to tell me if you don't.
I mean, what I will do is just every now and again, if there's something you say that I just want more clarification, I'll ask. But I also want to just say hello to everybody who's joining us, and thank you for those watching the recording as well. But if you're watching at the moment and you want to put down a comment, just let us know where you are. Anything about you at this moment, and then if you've got any questions as we're going through, then obviously we can bring in those questions as well. But no, absolutely fine. If you're happy to just keep talking, then I might interrupt every now and again.
Please interrupt.
We've already got Claire saying thank you, really inspiring and great to see these journeys being heard. Wonderful. I'm glad you appreciate it, Claire. Thank you.
Bless. So so I carried on like that for 9 years, and it was hell. It would change me as a person. I was I'm a very outgoing, chatty person. I love my friends, my family. I was pretty healthy. I mean, as I say, I've always had vulnerabilities, and I'm had a tricky upbringing, so I'm quite an anxious person for sure. But it made me much more anxious. And also then I became very much in fight and flight because I was ready to take it on. So I was like, is it going to happen? It happened a couple of Christmases. Right. Of course it did. Of course it did. I was putting myself on this massive pedestal, wanting to make it lovely for everyone. And then on the actual day, couldn't move.
Yeah.
So then I was like, now this is like too coincidental. And then the way it went was this. I finally thought, I can't go on. This is ruining my life. I'm now not going to things in the worry that I'm going to get this terrible pain. or it's going to be embarrassing, or I'm going to, you know, have to bow out of stuff.
And as you know now, with the expectation effect, you know, we predict things. So if we're worrying about something, we're more likely to have that. So
100%. So it's a horrible, vicious circle. If you don't know what's happening, and this is the same for so many people, which is why I'm here talking to you, because I'm so want to get this message out. If you don't know what's happening, you kind of think you've gone a bit mad, and that your body is less than, and it's letting you down, and you're weaker than others. Also, we can talk about this later, depends if we run out of time, but also people around you, you know, it's a little bit like, oh, Tania, oh, she's not coming. Of course she's not coming. She's got a hurty. And they're kind of, even my own husband, maybe my children have been incredibly understanding, like labeling maybe I'm a hypochondriac, or I'm weak, or lesser than. And of course, then the more you feel that judgment, the more you don't want to show anybody what's happening to you, the worse the pain gets.
Absolutely, because you're just bottling it all up, hiding it all. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was the cycle, and I'm sure when people listen to this, if they're in the same cycle, they'll really relate to that and be like, oh my God, that just absolutely happens to me. So
and then you just feel such a victim, don't you?
Victim, and then you don't want to show them.
No, quite.
You have to. I still to this day can kind of hide. If I have a hurty, I will go to being like, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to like cause a fuss or be lesser than, especially for my children. Such a weird thing, because they're 33 and 31 and 27. They certainly don't need me to be mollycoddling them, but I will still have that deep down kind of like, I don't want to show them that I'm weak in any way or lesser than.
Yeah.
Which obviously I've had to write about that.
I was about to say, definitely more than writing, just sort of, just working on that, on those deep-seated beliefs. And certainly the more I've done this work, the more I recognize these faulty beliefs are crucial at really being able to drill down into what are the beliefs underlying all this. Because if you can work on that and then become more authentic and allowing and expressing of your emotions as well, then you're less likely to have symptoms.
And to go way back, because why on earth, when I wasn't in lots of ways properly looked after by my dad or my mum, my dad left when I was, 1. Right. And my mum is an amazing woman, but, she then married a rather abusive man when I was, 7. Right. So, what is this pedestal I've put myself on? Am I trying to make up for what I didn't have? Yes, I would say yes. I'm trying to not be them.
That would make sense, yeah.
But too much. Way too much. I'll never forget, just one thing to say. I'll never forget one Christmas where, I'd done all the stockings, and I hope there's no small children listening. I'd done all the stockings and the house was lovely and this was happening. And my husband, and I probably had a pain, and my husband said to me, no one really cares, don't you? Like, you just don't. And I just remember that hitting home. And I said, no, but they do. And he was like, it's really you that cares. And I'll never forget that, because he was right. Yeah, of course they love it, but they didn't need it all. No. And
I remember my father saying that to my mother when we were all adults. He was saying, we really don't need all this food. And worse still, he then said, I don't even like homemade mince pies. She used to make dozens and dozens of.
Go to M&S for God's sake.
He said, I prefer the bought ones. And actually, then my husband then admitted that. And I was a bit like my mother. So, right, that's it. So,
what a relief!
Yes,
what a relief.
But upsetting at first, because you feel you're doing it for them, and then it was like, actually, okay, so we'll just buy mince pies now.
I mean,
I want to say hello to Scott, because Scott's posted as well, and we'll come back to yours a bit again as well. But he says he's relating a lot to what you're saying.
Oh, right. Thank you, Scott. Well, so so then this was going on, and then we'll get to the kind of the good bit. So I had this lovely client / friend who had something similar, which turned out to be TMS. And I think the osteopath said, oh, do you know about Nicole Sachs' work, which is a lot of the work I've done, The Cure for Chronic Pain. As we know, there's many things out there, but this was just the journey that I found at that time. And so, you know, how when someone says, oh, you know, go on this website, go on that website, you know, I would be a person that maybe might a bit, but I've got quite bad attention span. So I'd be like, yeah, whatever, or get bored of that. But for some reason, I suppose I was desperate. And I think what I want for people is not to get to where I got to. I want them to know about this way sooner than where I got to, and not 9 years and not 50.
Well, preferably as they're growing up, start to understand the importance
100%
of dealing with emotional stuff. Back in school. Yes, it's all cultural. So many cultural pressures.
100%. I totally agree with you. And so I did her course, and I started doing what you've talked about, which is I journaled for 20 minutes, and then I started to learn much more how to meditate. I had done meditation, but I don't think I embodied it. I think I kind of did it. I was a bit fidgety, probably thinking about supper. I didn't really do it properly, which is fine. But then I started to really get it into my body. But what was so mind-blowing was the journaling for me, because as I said, I've done therapy, I've done coaching training, you know, I've helped hopefully a lot of people in this world. So I feel like I'm pretty emotionally intelligent and in touch with myself. And I'm only saying that because if someone else is feeling, well, you know, I've done this, I've done that, but writing it down on your own and then getting rid of it, which works for me, I either have my phone or I write it and I rip it up and throw it away, is a whole different ballgame. And I found over time that I started to say things that I'd actually never said out loud.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it wasn't because I was trying not to say them. I think there was an innate guilt in me that there were certain things that I could just never say.
Yes. Yeah.
Some charm, offensive. So even with a therapist, I might still be using that charm, that kind of, I'll give you a bit of myself, but I'm not going to give you all of myself. I didn't.
It's threatening. That showing your vulnerability, you know, it's frowned upon anyway. We learn that from a child, don't we? You don't scream and shout. You don't get upset. You know, don't be a baby if you're scared of something. So many things that we absorb through our childhoods that then are going to impact us in later life. So
and also, like, being ashamed. You don't want to say something really bad about someone you love. I was like, I can't even say it about them because I feel guilty saying it about them.
Yes, of course.
You know, and that's the reservoir that fills up. Even if my husband's annoying me, you know, I can say anything I like. The next day, he might not be annoying me. Yeah. But I've got it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's hope they don't read it.
No. Well, then I get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get rid of it, or I delete it.
Or write on top of your writing. So anything like that, because like you say, you in that moment, this is how you're feeling. And in that moment, it might be old repressed stuff just starts to surface and you're able to offload about it. But the last thing you want is somebody to read it, to then, you know, who thinks this is how you're really feeling. No, it's in this moment how you're feeling. So writing on top of your writing, burning it, you know, having some sort of way of just releasing it, like you say, and just release it, then yes, then it's gone. Then that's not an issue the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And it is for me like this reservoir that got filled up, and mine got filled up over, you know, 57 years. Not surprising that it came out, you know, at 50 or whatever I was. No, younger, 48.
And it was already coming out in other ways.
It was already coming out. Yeah. And then this was the cherry on top. This was like big, you know, in some ways, I know a lot of people who have these interviews say this. I'm not grateful for the pain because it was just, and can be, it's horrendous. But golly, it's made me into who I am now. And who I am now is so much better for me, not to the world. I'm not saying I'm trying to be better to the world. This is for me, for the rest of however much time I've got left. This is who I would want to be. So I'm grateful that I came to this work and came to understand what was happening to me, because
it's really what people are saying when they say they feel so grateful for this, because if they didn't have that, then they wouldn't have stopped to do all the exploration, to actually understand themselves. And it's not just impacting you now or up to this point, or me now up to this point. This is going to impact us for the rest of our lives. Because it's how we live, it's our understanding of who we are, understanding of how we can create stress. So I think it's important to recognize this is not just, oh, let's get rid of this pain. This is really about learning to be authentic, to acknowledge how we're feeling, to start really getting out of our heads and trying to be what we think other people think we should be, rather than actually who we really should be, who we really want to be. And
it's so interesting because I thought I was really, really authentic. I'm a very open person. I'm quite a blunt person. I say it how it is. I'm not like a shy, retiring person. And I mean, really, the bottom line is I don't think I knew who my real authentic self was. It wasn't like I was faking it. I just was being the people pleaser. That was my natural state.
Yeah.
Not so much what people thought.
Well, it became your natural state.
Yes, it became my natural
state. Born innocent children, and it's all the influences around us, our expectations on other people, the cultural expectations, religious expectations, and that then just has such an impact. So how can we be authentic? We probably can't even remember, you know, who we were as a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, and then we mold it, and then we've got to start unpackaging it. So no wonder we become those people pleasers and, you know, rescuers and trying to help other people and overthinking, overanalyzing everything because we've got to get it right. You know, all these different ways. That's all putting pressure on ourselves because we're not able to just let go and be completely authentic, because there's that huge fear about doing that. And I've had people saying to me, well, you know, but I don't care. I'll say what I want to say, and or I show my vulnerability because, you know, this happened to me, and I used to think this. I could easily say, oh God, I had a meltdown last week or whatever.
Same.
But the real vulnerability is actually being seen. So reaching out for help when you're in the middle of that mess, that is hugely scary for most people, to be seen to be falling apart. And I think that's when you can do that and really just let go and recognize it's okay, you're loved, you're safe. And that's when you can start really letting things go.
And also, you know, we're so similar, all of us. You know, we're not alone. For instance, when I just use this as an example since we've been talking about it, when Giles was dying, looking back, I didn't really reach out much. I mean, I remember going to a friend's house and crying, but even then it was short-lived. And then I was like, pull yourself together. What I should have been doing is literally sobbing in someone's arms and saying, cook me supper. Like, I can't cope. I can't leave your kitchen. And I remember with my husband, because we weren't in the best of places, and also my brother had behaved really badly, so my husband was pretty cross. So it's incredibly complex, as you can imagine. You know, I didn't even reach out to him and say, I'm really struggling. And I couldn't reach out to my mum because she was in it and also pushing back towards me. So it was such a lonely place that I probably had to build up the even more. And so fast forwarding to the work, what I feel that it's done for me is, and I have to say, kudos to my children who are of a different generation, who will say how they're feeling, and they will help others, and they see people's vulnerabilities, and they're so much less judgmental. And there are all sorts of wonderful things, these young people today, I think. And also I coach a lot of young, and they're incredible, although got a lot on their plates. They're also incredible, you know, to say, we get it and we're not judging you. So I think what really turned around for me was I didn't have this work during COVID. I wish I had. And I really struggled in COVID. Like, it was a nightmare for me. It was all my worst nightmares because, of course, I thought we were all going to die. And I was in a huge amount of pain. And my whole family decided to move in for a very long time. I got completely overwhelmed and then really down on myself for being overwhelmed. And I only speak this because I know other people are going to relate to it, because a lot of people say, oh, it was amazing, we had all the family and we did this, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this. And so I thought I was a good mum. Oh, I'm a terrible mum, I'm a terrible parent, because really they're driving me mad and it's overwhelming and they're drinking too much.
How natural is that to feel that when you've lived as a couple and then suddenly you've got everybody living back with you?
I mean, they're grown people with their partners and 3 dogs and I was in so much pain because I hadn't found this work. So I just remember thinking, I think I'm having like a nervous breakdown. Like I feel out of control. My mum was vulnerable. My brother was vulnerable. Anyway, not soon after I found this work, and it was absolutely life-changing for me to say things like, no, I can't cook dinner. You do it. So during COVID at the beginning, I didn't do any of that. I was like, dinner, lunch, breakfast.
Yeah, you're the mum. You've got to do it.
Like everything beautiful. And then one of one of my son's girlfriends said to me, why are you always washing up? And I said, well, it's my job. And she said, is it? I really remember that. It like hit me in the heart, and I was like, well, yes. And she was like, but why? Why is it your job? And I remember thinking, yeah, why is it just my job? There's like hundreds of us here, and like I've got a job as well, and blah, blah. So it was so, and I know a lot of mums or dads are going to relate to this, that you're just trying to do everything and make it all beautiful. Now, if they're coming for a weekend, that's one thing. Yes. If they're there for 9 months, that's
and they're adults and they've been living it on their own and cooking and cleaning and everything themselves.
They didn't want me to do it all. It was again totally me. But doing this work, I look back and I think how I would handle that situation so differently now. Oh my God. Yeah. And another, my daughter-in-law said, my mum goes to bed and shuts the bedroom door. And I was thinking, I've never done that in my whole life. When everybody's here, no way. And now I would not think twice. If I was feeling tired or overwhelmed, or I needed to do some journaling or some meditation or listen to a podcast, no question would I remove myself from the group of people. I am not performing. They don't care. They're having a lovely time without me. Yeah. And I would go off and do it. And of course, what that does is put my body into rest and repair. Yes. Yeah. And then this doesn't come. Or if it does come, it comes a little bit. And then I'm just like, okay, I'm overdoing it, or my brain's overdoing it, or
and just really exploring it, looking at, okay, what's it telling me? It's telling you to stop. So the first thing is actually backing off and looking after you, doing some emotional work, doing some journaling, whatever it takes, but not, it sounds like you very much have always felt that you need to be there for everybody else, sort of juggling everything and everybody. So I can't see now how anybody would not see why the build-up of all this would not manifest, as a symptom.
I know. I remember I did have a cranial osteopath, and I used to go to him and I'd be like, what is going on with my body? And he would be like, it's coming from your head. But of course, someone can say that. But I was thinking, what do I do about that? Yes. How much therapy can a person have? And of course, this was what I needed to do about that. Yeah. And it's so simple. That's what's so mad about
that's the thing. It's so simple. Not always easy, but it is so simple. No. I just want to ask if anybody's got any questions as we're going along here. Do pop your questions in the box and we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
For now, I mean, Scott, you were saying your main symptoms are neck pain at the base of your skull. Tension and pressure. I think that I've certainly been there. I know you've been there. It certainly was one of my symptoms.
And that is exactly it, isn't it? That's exactly the word. Tension and pressure.
Yeah.
And so you need to say to yourself,
what's causing that tension.
What's causing me tension? What pressure am I under? Even if it's just for you, it could be the simplest thing. It could be walking my dogs every day. It could be that I'm running the country. There's no right or wrong. No, it's what pressures you.
Absolutely. And that could be just what's happening outwardly, but it could be very much what's going on inside. How much are we trying to keep going because we feel we ought to, should do? We're trying to rescue people, or we're trying to overanalyze what's going on, or get things right. And so just to explore and looking at these beliefs, because these faulty beliefs drive our behaviors anyway. You know, if we've got a belief that we're not good enough, then no wonder we start become perfectionists and just overanalyzing, making sure we get things right. You know, if we were told off a lot as a child, that belief that, well, I'm naughty, it sounds ridiculous as an adult to have that belief. But absolutely, that's why people are so concerned about criticism, for example, worrying that people will tell them off or whatever. Any sort of criticism, that's because we've probably been told off a lot as a child and become sensitive to that. But working on that belief then, and then really being able to unpick that and understand it, can help.
Doing inner child work and there's a lot out there on that.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I really like is the Curable app. But there's like you say, there's work everywhere that you just need to type it in now, and whatever suits you comes up. But going back to meet yourself and chat with yourself at whatever age, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In fact, funny enough, I did something the other day where I met myself when I was 13, and I hadn't gone later. I'd always gone early and thought, well, I'll meet the little 7-year-old. But then I thought, no, when I was 13, that was tough times.
It's picking the times that you need a support.
And it's that thing of and like you say, simple but not easy work. And that was just to sit and kind of, which by the way for me is incredibly difficult. I think I
can imagine from what you said.
Well, I'm sort of ADHD. I find it very hard to be still.
Right.
Very, very hard. I'm quite good at it in my job with others, but for myself, I'm like a wind-up little, rabbit. So again, classic scenario for ending up with a mind-body problem. But I did sit quietly with my 13-year-old and I didn't try to analyze it. I just sort of waited to hear what was going on, and that thing of just being there for her, which maybe I hadn't had. I didn't even know that now until I did this work, that I hadn't had that. Did anyone ever actually say to me, age 13, how are you feeling?
No. But also that's your life, so it's normal to you. Totally. This is the thing when people sort of say, yeah, but people have had a lot worse than me, but that doesn't matter. It's about how did you feel? And like you say, nobody probably asked you, but also it was normal to you. So that's just what you do.
Exactly. And that's the thing as well about working on yourself is what's normal, but maybe you don't like it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So normal would be Tania saying yes to going out to lunch with girlfriends, or Tania going to London, or Tania doing this. And I have definitely had some resistance to the new me. That's the other thing that comes up.
Right. From other people?
Yes, for sure.
Right.
For sure. Because as you step into your authenticity and you put up the correct boundaries for you, people, my mum being one of those people, see a difference and take it upon themselves to think it's them. And a couple of my friends as well, as in, oh, you've hurt my feelings, you're not coming out as much, or you're not replying as much, or you're not there as much. And my mum is like, oh, you don't really need anyone, do you? And of course, if you can revert back to the old Tania super quick, gosh, I must do that for that person, and I must do that. But now, having done this for a year and a bit, I will have a real check-in.
Yes.
And be like, what would I like, one, to respond from an authentic place, not a people, and two, believe in myself that this is what's right for me. And of course, people immediately go, oh, well, you're just being selfish. But it's not.
But then if you don't nurture yourself, you can only give what you've got. And if you don't have love and compassion and in here, how can you express it to anybody else? 100%. You have to have that in yourself. And Zaylee's just mentioned here, how difficult did you, hi Zaylee, how difficult did you find it to develop self-compassion? Because that's a big turnaround for so many people. And how did you do that? Thanks for being here. You're incredibly inspiring. That's lovely.
Oh, very hard. It's so hard. Isn't that a funny thing? Because I'm a massive empath. Like I see someone in trouble and I'm like, my heart bursts, from the person in Tesco's to my mum. You know, I will just feel that, which is why I then ended up being a coach. So how extraordinary that I found it so hard to have self-compassion. And also the other thing is I thought I did. I thought I did have self-care and self-compassion, but I didn't until I, you know, started getting the trauma out and discovering who I really was and what Tania, age 58, who are you? I mean, that's literally it. You're asking,
who are you and what do you want in your life?
What do you want? Who are you? What are your values? What do you want in your life? Really, like really, not just I want a house and a dog and a new Mini. You know, what do I want?
You said feeling it in your body.
Feeling
like you say, when you want to make and I think this is when you're wanting to make a decision, I think this is a point to sort of clarify that so many people sort of think, oh, well, do I want to go out or not? Now I'm a bit tired, I won't go out. Whereas actually it's more about, okay, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about actually going out to see such and such, and then closing our eyes and noticing how our body's feeling and doing it with the opposite as well. And then actually if somebody is feeling let down and if that impacts you because you know, do-gooder and you like people to be happy and you're keeping everybody happy, then it's about, okay, that's interesting, that's triggered something in me. I will work on this, but and let that go. But actually, I'm fulfilling what I want to do. I'm being authentic, and this is about filling the bucket up for me, so I've got more to give when I want to give.
Exactly, because you don't. It's not like I want to not suddenly be kind or helpful to people. That's not correct at all. That brings me a lot of joy. But I think that I have to have boundaries and also maybe be a bit more real about my own vulnerabilities. So I don't just want to be the guru who's like, oh, well, Tania will know what to do, or let's speak to Tania about what, you know, to fix that. It'll be more like, one, I might not know what to do. I might say, no, I don't know. Not quite, but it wasn't in my, I would find a way to know what to do in the past.
Right.
Do you know? So if somebody was like, Mum, what do I do? I would go, bloody hell, I'll have to sort it out. I might say, I don't know. Do you know? Like, how do you know? You're clever. And of course, people respond and they go, oh, well, yeah, okay, let's do it together. Like, I don't have to be the one.
Or they'll ask you and then they'll go off. And when you found out the answer, you go back to them and they've actually, oh, no, I got that sorted.
Of course they have.
Yeah. So it's about not taking this responsibility on to do all that.
They're better at everything than me now. So I'm going, great. You're a much better cook. Great. Tick. You're a much better driver. You're a much better... You know, so it's, and I'm using, I know not everyone has children, so I'm using them as an example because I can only tell you my journey. But even like a friend, I might be like, actually, you're much better at throwing a party, rather than the old days where I'd be like, yeah, I'll throw the party for you.
I'll organise it, do everything.
Organise it. I'll have everyone at my house. And now I'm like, no, I don't want anyone at my house. Let's do it. Let's do it at yours. And it is counterintuitive at first. If you're that person that wants to look after everyone, that wants to have everyone to yours, that wants to fix and you know, have the emotional intelligence to sort out your problems, whatever it is that I put on myself from a very young age. And I know why I did it is because my mum needed me. My mum was struggling, you know, with these being alone without, you know, my dad wasn't a very nice person. And then, you know, then there was another man who wasn't a very nice person. So I remember as a little girl taking that on board, like, I must fix this. They're all doing a terrible job. And and I'm teetotal, go figure, because everybody was out of control. And they were all drinking. And I was thinking, right, okay, so I won't drink, and I must make sure everybody's safe. And it's the key word, isn't it? The safety.
Oh, definitely.
But I over-safed myself till I became kind of a prisoner, you know. And I think
the clue is also, when you're doing all this, if you then feel resentment, that's a pretty good clue that no, this is not what you should be doing.
Oh my goodness. So the anger, that's such a good point. The anger was real, but I didn't know where it was aimed. So I think a lot of my pain was anger. And, you know, I was very angry that my brother died. Even though we'd had this, he was tricky dicky, and it was a horrible journey. I was like, how the hell has that happened? How the hell did two of my really good friends died and my brother died? I was angry about that. So I had to really, because that's quite hard, because who are you angry with? You know, I'm actually do have a real faith. So I was angry with God, but also I was just angry. And then
angry with them that they've left you.
One, they've left me. Two, then I had to look after my brother, and then he left me, and I couldn't save him. That was my other terrible guilt. How could I not save him? I save everyone. No, you don't. So I think it's like, it is becoming really real with yourself. Of course I can't save him. But in what story was I told? Did I tell myself as a little girl that I had to go around saving everyone? A massive one.
Massive.
Of course I can't save anyone.
No, absolutely. And therefore you're trying to all the time, you know, with all the behaviors that you've incorporated, because you've learned that. So, and no wonder your symptoms came on sort of a couple of months after your brother died, because all this is sort of stewing and brewing and building up. And, no wonder.
I was an accident waiting to happen. And the stomach issues I've had all my life. And, you know, it's IBS, and you can't eat this, and you must be dairy-free and gluten-free and everything free. So I've done all of that. And then at the end of the day, I went to France recently, and I ate all the croissant and all the bread, not advocating it. It was great fun, but now I'm paying for it. Nothing happened to me.
Right.
I'm not saying that one shouldn't be gluten-free or dairy-free or whatever free. I'm definitely in balance, but it was mind-body connection without a doubt.
My question is always, if you are intolerant to something, when did you become intolerant? Why did you become intolerant? Because our bodies are naturally going to work on their own and heal themselves anyway. So if you're going to become gluten intolerant, and I know my daughter and I did tests years and years ago, before we came across this work, because we had become intolerant to things, and we had the tests that showed it, but we don't now. We eat anything we want to now, but I wouldn't encourage people to do that until they've done a lot of work on themselves. But yes, it is, why do we become intolerant? And again, I've mentioned this before, I think the book The Expectation Effect by it's David Robson. It's incredible, and it really helps you start to see how we are predicting. You know, we're predicting things and expecting them by the thoughts going on in our heads. And you know, talks about the placebo, the nocebo beliefs, and play such a massive part in all this. And that's why it's so important to unpick the beliefs, unpick the belief that we're intolerant to something before you start trying to, you know, decided to take something if it's going to make you ill, for example.
It's so much easier, isn't it, to do that than to do the work? So much easier to say, oh, well, I just won't eat gluten.
Oh, yes.
Or I'll take paracetamol, or I'll go and have this medication. You know, as we know, everybody's massively over-medicated, especially in America, but also in England. Of course, it's way more scary to go, well, I'm just going to work on my emotional needs. And funny enough, was a bit of this story that's important. Is I went to this rheumatoid arthritis specialist and said, before I found this work, and said, you know, I can't go on. Can you MRI me? Can you do a nerve test because my neck was numb, blah, blah. And when I walked into her office, the first thing she said to me was, I think this is the way you're wired. And I was like, and I thought, oh no, I just want you to say, you've got this and this is why, and now I'm going to help you. And I was like, I put my head in my hands and I was like, no, don't say it's the way I'm wired. And then she said, look, honestly, over half of my patients, it's the way they're wired. There isn't actually physically. She said you've got a bit of degeneration in your neck, but you're 56 or whatever. Of course, you're going to have a bit of degeneration. And then when I went back for the results, I'd started this work. Oh, and so, yeah. And so she said, oh, you look, you know, perkier. And I said, well, look, I've started this work. And she was really interested. She said, gosh, tell me everything you know, because I want to be one of those people. Because she said, I also suffer from the mind-body connection and I am on medication, but I know that really it's coming from another place. So someone like, for her to have the tools that
the doctors, physios, other therapists, to be on the, you know, if you go and see your GP and you've just started with neck pain and you've woken up with it or whatever, and there's no fear that there's anything serious, at that stage, if you're going to see an osteopath, physio, doctor or whatever, that first level, that would be fantastic. That's where awareness is going to grow. If we can stop people going into that chronic, but you know, when it's still acute before they go into a chronic state, then,
and tell them how to not be that, not just say, you've got mental issues or you're a hypochondriac. That's not
or you're wired that way. That, you know, was she saying that you're, you know, that you can actually unwire yourself?
No, that was the answer she didn't have. So she was like, you're wired that way.
You're wired that way. That's it. Tough.
Well, great. And that's like when Jack said, look, it's all from here. I was like, what do I do with here? But now I understand what to do here. And it is very simple for me. For me, it's the writing it down, getting it out, whichever way, with a practitioner or on your own, whichever way works for you, or both, or everything.
And sometimes working with someone actually helps you identify stuff that you can't see yourself. Definitely. I think that's the important thing. I mean, some colleagues and I are doing courses at the moment, and we're working with each other as case studies. It's incredible what comes up, that it just pops up because you're doing this deeper work that I wouldn't have been able to find myself, but they wouldn't be able to find themselves. So quite often actually working with someone who can help you unpick it all and help the unconscious stuff come so that you can see it. Once you see it, you can work on it.
Yeah.
So Scott was saying, once you committed to the work, how long did it take for you to feel it could be working? For a start, Scott, that is such a, you know, you're asking Tania, I just want to remind you, you're asking Tania, who will have a very different response from anybody else you ask doing this work. But go on, Tania.
I would say that after about 8 weeks, I remember thinking, do I feel like I haven't woken up with a bit of a neck pain or a bit of a shoulder pain? Because it was nearly a daily thing, not always chronic, sometimes just a bit like, oh gosh, you know. And I would dig in and say to John, I'm constantly saying to John as I walk past him in the kitchen, can you just push on that muscle? And then I started to notice that I just wasn't doing it, and I thought, that's odd. And then it was just gathered speed. Now, we talked about this, Georgie, that it's not linear, that, you know, my reservoir filled up and 2 days ago I got a pain in my neck, but it's very different now. It's very different. My attitude, one of the things Nicole says is wear it loosely. So I'm like, I see you, I can feel you, and that is hurting me. But let's just think about what's going on. So I did, and I wrote it down. Even this morning on my walk, I was on my own, like a nutty woman. I said it out loud. I just said 20 minutes of stuff out loud. Nobody's hearing me except the birds and the dogs. And it was helpful. It was helpful for me to go, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. And so it just, I would say my pain is 80% better. And and as I said, I've been doing this maybe 14 months, and the more you do it, the more easy it becomes. For me, the 10 minutes of meditation at the end are quite important, because I'm a speedy Gonzales and I have a brain that goes 100 miles an hour. That lovely time for me to just absorb what I've been saying, because sometimes it's tough work. It's upsetting.
Yeah.
The strange thing with me is that I can have, and I know a lot of people are afraid of this if you're not with a practitioner, is this, the thing is, you do the work and you're maybe a bit afraid of being upset because it's tough on your own. But the weird thing is my brain has learnt to do that. And then it's like, okay. And then I do the meditation and then I'm off skipping and jumping, off I go. I very rarely feel it really bring me down the rest of the time. But it's, I think that gets easier the more you work on yourself.
You're working on yourself to feel safer, to build that tolerance of being able to feel the emotions, whether you're doing that journaling, through sitting, emotional awareness, somatic work. It's about you training yourself to feel safe. And in fact, that's what we tend to do before anything else, is to actually make sure that people know how to self-soothe, how to ground themselves and keep calm and allow emotions to come and go, and only then start to really journal about the big stuff, so that they don't go into this massive fear. Because it's not the emotion that causes the fear, it's the sensations we feel when these emotions are coming up, and then often we react to them. So it's about learning to feel safe, because we know that emotions just come and they go if we let them. Otherwise they come and then we start going, oh, and then we're fighting them and not letting them surface. So
or you think they're going to trigger the pain or the illness. You're frightened. You'll think, if I write that, I'm then going to be in pain all week, and it's not the case. So you get this faith. The more you do it, you're like,
you just let it up and go, and then the pain isn't needed. So, well, thank you so much for this, Tania. And as they've already been saying, you know, what an inspiration, and it's just so helpful.
It's a pleasure.
Hear these recovery journeys. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for those of you who've joined us, and I hope those who are watching it afterwards are enjoying it as well. Lovely. All right, take care everybody, enjoy the rest of the week. Bye bye.